So, this morning, my friends, I just invite you to come present into this moment of your life, of your being. And as I often say, the breath is a wonderful way to both ground yourself in the present, but also begin to relax the nervous system by paying attention to the breath coming in or out. Just noticing, not controlling, but allowing. And one thing that we can notice, which is useful for any other activity, is that it's just happening. Like the rest of life, the breath is simply happening. The body knows how to do it without being directed. And that goes for many, many other activities in our lives as well. Just happening. Life moving. Being itself here and now. And actually in all moments. So the moment we notice what's ever present by whatever name, it begins to produce more and more of a feeling of being grounded in it. As I often encourage folks, just notice what's already here, already at peace, already present, already open, before we try to become all of those things. And as soon as your awareness is turned toward that, actually, attention would be a more accurate word. As soon as your attention is moved toward that which is deeper than the anxious mind or the judging mind, you begin to feel the effects of that noticing the deeper ground. So just begin to feel into that dimension. In actuality, it's not simply a dimension, it's the whole thing, but it feels to the mind, particularly identified mind, as though it's simply one of many dimensions, which is also true from that perspective. So, if the spiritual impulse moves in any of you as longing, this longing is arising from this ground itself. Mind imagines longing means we don't have it. But follow that longing to its source. Usually we're following it outward, imagining that what we're longing for is something out there, not something in here. So if you are fortunate enough to know this longing for your home ground, this longing for awakening, this longing for enlightenment, this longing for truth, this longing for God, however it shows up, longing for love. If you are fortunate to have such a longing, know that this is the mystery devoted to seeing itself in your own experience. It's a great grace to know such longing. It moves you. And it is not such a huge shift to make, to be devoted to what you're longing for, whether that's truth or God or freedom, whatever it is for you. Because this that we are is actually always devoted to itself, moment to moment. It's meeting itself, moment to moment. It's loving itself, moment to moment. And it meets itself in each of you. It loves itself in each expression. So we might say to be devoted to truth is actually being devoted to yourself. Because what you truly are is truth by any name, but it isn't an identified name. Maybe you're devoted to happiness. By all means, be devoted to happiness, but don't have it limited. The deepest happiness is not about anything external. So begin to feel into the vastness more and more. The vastness that is infinite. The ground that is much deeper than the earth and yet moves as earth. Air, wind, fire. Water, awareness, wisdom, creativity, and discrimination. All of you are somewhat familiar with Buddhist Bodhisattva Manjushri. And that sword that this Bodhisattva carries is the sword of discrimination. It discriminates truth from untruth, the real from the unreal. Illusion from reality. And one of the ways that discrimination moves in our relative lives is through karma, the impersonal movement of cause and effect. And think about it being impersonal. There are laws of cause and effect. It doesn't mean that punishment is meted out for any one individual, and yet there are effects that follow causes that become the causes for the next effect. And we can see this very easily in our own lives. So the interesting thing about how the infinite moves as form is that in itself, changeless, doesn't discriminate, doesn't have a judgment of good and evil, of right and wrong. And yet it moves in our relative conditioned mind as all of those things. Even that is its own movement. And it moves, and you can feel it in your own lives. It moves based on causes and conditions. Can we accept causes and conditions in our own lives? And see that that's at work in every other life as well. But if we are devoted to truth, devoted to the light, devoted to the divine, in time we will realize how great our responsibility is for moving from that deep mystery. And that's where it will be very individual how it wants to move in you. So the movement of karma through causes and conditions is not the same as being tethered to conditioned mind. We can see that conditioned mind appears, but yet there's something deeper and purer than conditioned mind. So I would just invite you to let your attention rest on the deepest truth that you have realized. Not to judge a self as being closer or further away. But when you're really attending to the deepest realization you might have had, or that might be forthcoming, you realize that whoever it is you thought you were is not who you are in the deepest sense. And that is the ultimate ground, the ultimate source that lets the body, the mind, the emotions relax. And yet it moves intelligently, just like the breath as we began. The breath that knows what to do to maintain itself for as long as the body has life. So, however it comes to you, just let yourself rest in this nameless ground, this changeless mystery. And let your heart open to the devotion that you already have for it, or it would not come as longing. It would not be here if it weren't devoted to itself.